Will you be remembered after you're dead? The Z-List Deadlist podcast about obscure people from history with me, Izzy Lawrence.
Hello. I knew what I was doing just then. That was fine. This is an episode all about me not doing what I'm not knowing what I'm Izzy. Hi. Yeah. This is an awkward episode for me. It begins on Tuesday last week, which I know for a history podcast isn't that long ago, but bear with me. I was at Natalie Haynes's book launch. Now, I don't know if you remember Natalie Haynes. She has done many an episode on the Z-List Deadlist. She has done an episode on Juvenal, who watches The Watchmen, that chap, which you can go and listen to again. Also, that episode on Lucian and his science fiction writing ways. But this episode isn't about that. This episode is more about her book launch, because I was there. Her latest book is called 1,000 Ships, which is all about Helen of Troy. Now, when I was a kid, I thought that Helen of Troy was a lady with no arms who had to help the fishing fleets get in the water. Hence, she was the face that launched 1,000 Ships, that she actually used her face. And I imagined a big bruised face, but that's not it. Apparently, she's very pretty. Anyway, point of the story is I was surrounded by You see, the thing about Natalie Haynes is she's a very clever person. So she knows a lot of brilliant people, like really random, like you're in the book launch going, well, I know him, I know him, I know her, blimey. Anyway, I was talking to a lady called Horatia, because of course Natalie knows somebody called Horatia. She had green nail polish, she was great. And also a lady called Caroline, we share a last name, she's Caroline Lawrence. She writes historic kids books, which is what I'm doing right now, which was like, oh my gosh, and she had cool hair. So anyway, we were all talking, and then Caroline was like, that's Joss Whedon behind us. And I turned around, and it was Joss Whedon behind us. And if you don't know who Joss Whedon is, watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and then realise how exciting that is. Now, by this time, I had not had any lunch, and had had 3 glasses of wine, so I was like, well, I'm going to seize this opportunity. And I then spoke out my face at Joss Whedon for about half an hour. I have no idea what I said, really. I think I put him in a wrist lock at one point, and I did that thing upon leaving, which is going around in my head trying to assess the damage that I've done my psyche, because there are lots of times in my life where there's one time when I didn't give my old geography teacher her shoes back. That was bad. There's another time when I might have begged somebody to take me back who really didn't want to take me back. That happened. But you know, these memories that come up in you and make you want to sort of like hurt yourself from the inside. Those memories. Now, one of those memories for me is an interview I did with a hero of mine called Jackie Kashian. Jackie does the Dork Forest Podcast. She's utterly tremendous. She has one of my favourite comedy specials, which is called This Would Make an Excellent Horcrux. I mean, come on. And I got to interview her for this show back in 2015. And guess what? I never released that interview. But why, Izzy? Was the audio quality not great? The audio quality doesn't bother me. You know that about me. No, what bothered me about it was that I witted. And I was a bit sort of like, oh yes, Jackie Kashian, I'm so clever, let me tell you these things. So I felt that if I had to listen to me act like an idiot again and go through it and edit it, I would actually have to consume my own face. It's one of those memories. It was just like, oh my God, I can't believe I said those stupid things. She must think I'm such an idiot. And then it sort of, I got late at editing it and another interview came up, so I didn't have to release it. And then it kind of, and now sort of nearly 4 years have gone by and I've still not released it. And I thought, hey, last week I got drunk and I spoke to Joss Whedon. This week I will release this episode of the Z-List Deadlist, which features Jackie Kashian. Now, the thing about this episode, which I find fascinating, the thing that I want you to take away and really chew over, is how much truth there is revealed in fiction. There's this Jewish phrase, which is, what's truer than the truth? A story. And while Jackie tells you about her Z-List Deadlist person, I really want you to think about that, because I do think that fiction reveals a lot more about us than dry facts, often. Anyway, here is my hero Jackie Kashian talking to an English idiot who, yeah. I mean, honestly, the interview's not that bad. It really isn't that bad. I've just internalised it because We got one of my favourite comedians on the Skype, on the internet, and it's the wonderful Jackie Kashian from JackieKashian.com and the DorkForest.com and all the rest of it, with an amazing podcast, which I've been listening to on and off for years. I sort of go spits and spats with you. I sort of do, like, a month of solid listening to you, and then 3 months off, and then another month of
Fair enough. That sounds like how I read.
Yeah.
You read by author, and then you're like, no, I get what they're saying. And then you have to weed off, and then you're I wonder how they're doing.
I like to mix it up with my authors. I can't go too much on one subject, otherwise I get proper, particularly in history stuff, because if you read a lot of non-fiction, which is what I do, I kind of get a bit, no, that's not what the other guy says, and you're annoying me. I don't like disagreements. It bothers me. But you are a big fiction dork, aren't you? And a dork in the most affectionate way possible.
Yeah, I don't mind being called a dork or a nerd or a geek or any of that stuff. I don't even mind, like, I refer to myself in stand-up comedy as the golden retriever of stand-up comedy because everyone likes me. And people are like, you shouldn't refer to yourself as a dog. And I was like, you don't like dogs? And I was like, I'm just talking about the temperament of this particular pet.
Yes.
And because people do think of stand-up comics as pets to some extent, especially the wealthy.
That's worrying.
We are brought to them on the backs of elephants. They never come to comedy clubs, the wealthy.
You're a reader. You're a dork reader. You're a fiction reader. And your Z-list, Deadlist person is an author who I've never read anything of. And and you just explain.
Her
Go.
name. Okay, this woman's name is Kage Baker, Kage Baker, like
so
Baker.
I'm guessing American by the name Cage.
Yes. Weirdly enough, she was on a very old episode of the Dork Forest, and it was very new, and so I was one of the greatest things in the world that I got to talk to her because she's currently my favorite science fiction writer, and
oh wow,
she writes. It's just amazing. And she passed away in 2010. And she died, I think she had a brain tumor. And she was 57 years old. And she was really just hitting her stride. She was starting to write some fantasy stuff. But her science fiction, she's famous and not famous. That's the biggest problem, is that people should know this woman because she grew up. Okay, a couple of my favorite things about Kage Baker. First of all, she grew up in Hollywood, Los Angeles, California, Hollywood. The picture on the back of her books, she's wearing no makeup. She looks like she just got out of bed, and she put on her glasses, and she's like, and you can tell in her books that she's not a huge fan of Hollywood. She's along the lines of kind of fuck Hollywood. I am going to take a picture of me, put it on the back of the book, read the book, don't read the book, fuck off. It's the greatest picture in the world. Now, the other thing is, she came on the Dork Forest and she talked about her dorkdom, which was she went to one of the very first Renaissance fairs in the United States. The founding of the Ren Fair in San Francisco in the late 60s.
So explain to listeners of the Z-List Deadlist what a Renaissance fair is.
Well, hello, people of Europe who might be listening who know more about the Renaissance than people of San Francisco who want to eat a turkey leg and speak in a fake British accent. So
I'm just trying to think, actually, did they have turkeys in the Renaissance? Because isn't it turkey a North American bird? Ooh.
Such a North American bird.
Wow. So, I don't know if we had them there.
Obvious error of the Renaissance. Nice work.
What they should do is have geese. Have goose. That's what you need.
Yes, it should be goose. But goose much more expensive than turkey.
Indeed.
They've already charged you $32 to get in so that you can throw hand axes and pretend to dance around a maypole and watch people fake joust. And it's like,
this sounds diabolically awful.
it is one of, and the crazy thing about it, because Kage Baker, when it first started, she said that she had to leave it because it became so, first of all, junior high, a lot of drama and a lot of backbiting and a lot of craziness. She said the history was so lame and not accurate that it began to drive her mad. Now, she went almost directly to something equally kind of lame and dorky, which is the Dickens Festival. But here, let us speak to her writing. her writing, her best known piece of work is a series called the Company series. And it is got two things in it that I don't enjoy either, usually, which is immortality and time travel.
Okay, you don't enjoy time travel? Oh,
I love time travel, but my biggest problem with time travel is the historical accuracy of it.
Okay.
I don't claim to be a historian, but I love history, and when I notice a glaring error,
like what?
you've really dropped the ball. You've really, really kind of fucked up. If Jackie Kashian can look at it and go, what is happening?
That's not
No,
right.
no.
They didn't have laptops in Elizabethan England.
Exactly. Why are you bringing tampons into the situation? It can be so bad. And I read a lot of crap. So I'm not above reading crap. But time travel and immortality usually drive me crazy. And immortality sounds interminable. So that's why I've never enjoyed that. But what Kage Baker does with her time travel and immortality, first of all, her history is incredibly well researched. The first book in the Company series is called The Garden of Eden, and it is, I believe, set during the Renaissance. It's set entirely in the 16th century in Spain and England.
That would be the Renaissance. Well, it's kind of Reformation Renaissance, isn't it? That's the sort of time. So when you're getting your Shakespeare's and your better paintings and your better anatomy, Andre Vesalius, that sort of thing.
Right. So it's a story, essentially, and the whole story centers around this woman named Mendoza. And Mendoza is born into the Spanish Inquisition, where she is accidentally thought to be a Jew. And she is 3 or 4 years old. And before they can kill her, she is kidnapped or taken away by a 24th century company called Zeus. Dr. Zeus.
Okay, yeah.
Oh yeah. And the crazy, what it is it's about a corporation in the 24th century that invents immortality and then has to invent time travel so they can see if the immortality works.
Nice.
So what they do is they go back in time, they do the immortality process on a baby in that time, come back to the 24th century, find that person and go, how'd that work out? And that person goes, well, I was driven mad somewhere in the last 1,200 years, 25,000 years or whatever. The whole idea is that the immortality process only works on babies, like newborns and until about 3 years old.
Yeah.
For whatever odd scientific reason, right?
Yeah.
So it's hard to sell it to millionaires who are the only people who would buy it. And there's a couple of rules of time travel. You cannot bring forward things, like you can't loot the past, much to the chagrin of this corporation.
Right.
But what you can do is you can hide shit in the past and then discover it. Right, like you hide a Van Gogh and then all of a sudden,
I see,
you're the only one who finds a new Van Gogh that nobody knew about.
Nice.
And so every day in the 24th century, the Zeus Corporation wakes up to vast wealth that has been discovered on their various properties.
Mm.
And what they use as agents through time, because the people in the 24th century don't want to go back in time. They find it dirty and uncomfortable and violent.
This is the thing. I've had many debates with fellow comedians backstage about, because it does come up occasionally, the conversation of, if you had a TARDIS, where would you go back to? And it's basically all the white guys getting really excited, and me and the Asian comic or me and the black comic sat there going, yeah, not so much.
Not as much.
No,
great.
No.
And so what they do is they do this immortality process, and what it sort of turns these people, they're sort of half mechanical. They become cyborgs to some extent.
Okay.
They're flesh, but also
7 of 9.
7 of 9. Exactly.
Excellent.
And so they have, except for all completely human looking, and they don't really age. So
and they don't assimilate, but
yes. And they do, but the byproduct of immortality can be madness. Like, it can drive you completely insane. And so what we do is, in these 7 or 8 books, and then she's written novellas off of it, is we follow the lives of a couple of these agents through time.
That sounds absolutely wacky.
And she gets the present right, and sadly, like, she died in 2010. Mm-hmm. She was predicting the future, and I don't know. Do you know the when they recut E.T. the movie E.T. to take the walkie-talkies, the guns out of the FBI guys' hands and put in walkie-talkies?
No, I didn't know that. Did they?
Yeah. There's some version.
I think there's some like films like in Ghostbusters and that sort of thing. You get it edited, all the cigarettes get edited out, and what people don't realise, American people don't realise, is that it's very rude in England. You know, like giving somebody the bird, like the finger.
Yeah.
Well, in England, it's very rude to do two fingers, like facing outwards. So like the opposite of a victory sign, just the other way round. Yes. Right. And so all of these times when people are editing out cigarettes, it just looks like they're swearing at you. It's
my God.
It's really amusing.
Blowing my mind because, of course, you're telling someone to fuck off.
Yeah.
Because you've taken the damn cigarette. So she called that. She must have either knew that it was happening or in process. And one of my favorite Christmas movies is actually called Holiday Inn. Mm-hmm. And it's a Bing Crosby, Fred Astaire and Bing Crosby movie. And it's excellent. But there is a scene in blackface in it because it's not just about Christmas. It's about all the different U.S. holidays. And one of them is the 4th of July. And so he talks about freedom. Bing Crosby does a scene in blackface where he is talking about the Emancipation Proclamation. And then his maid, his housekeeper, and her children are in it. And they are all three black.
Weird.
And it is, to bring it back to Kage Baker, it is a scene that has been edited out.
Wow.
When they show it on AMC, American Movie Classics, or TCM, Turner Classic Movies, they've edited that scene out, which makes future references to blackface when he talks about Valentine's Day. What do you think about Valentine's Day in blackface? Is one of the lines in the movie, which doesn't make any sense. And,
yes, without the initial scene. Yeah.
Right. I've been thinking about that because, there's so much history to, by deleting those scenes, you're not acknowledging the terrible history of slavery and blackface. And there's two things going on in every Bing Crosby movie I've ever seen. And let's take apart from the fact that he used to beat his children. Let's move forward and talk about race.
Who doesn't?
And let's not talk about violence. Let's talk about race. Is that he always, in all of his movies, and I don't know if it was him or if it was the producer, director, writers, they always have as many black people as possible in those movies. And I think it was a way to employ other human beings that weren't getting work.
Right.
And the problem is trying to sell it because they didn't think that people could handle it, which is not to condone that at all. Because whenever anyone dumbs it down for the audience, I am like, you are overestimating your own intelligence and underestimating that of the common man. The common man is not dumb.
No.
Everyone gets cable. Everyone's fine.
But the common man does want dick jokes occasionally. They really do.
Yes. Everyone wants a dick joke occasionally. Nobody's made of stone. That people really should read Kage Baker, though. And they aren't. I started with the second one, which is Sky Coyote. And this one was set in I believe it would have been the late 1600s in California. There's a lot of California history that she's got access to too, and it's about the Zeus Corporation going back to save an actual entire town of Chumash Indians, and so one of them has to dress up like their god, the Sky Coyote.
Ah,
yeah, it's just essentially he's one of the trickster gods.
Okay,
he's like Loki to some extent, except for more dick jokes.
Excellent.
Quite honestly, when she pointed out that she likes to read Terry Pratchett, I could see that some of the silliness in her books are Terry Pratchett inspired.
Nice. So how did she do her research and stuff? Did she just go to local museums, ask the local historians and that sort of thing? Or do you know?
Yes. But I asked her about her Latin, because in the Garden of Eden, there's a great deal of Latin.
Asterix
and I was
books?
like, pardon?
So I said Asterix books because that's the only bit of Latin that I know is when the Romans talk to each other, they do it in Latin. There you go.
I took a lot of Latin, and very funny is I tried to take it in college, and my Latin teacher from high school said, She almost burst into tears when she found out I was taking an advanced Latin course to see if I could get some retro credits. She was like, Jackie, you're not good at Latin. Out loud, right to my face. Aww. And she, turns out, was correct. I did not get those retro credits, but I did pass.
That's good.
I love Latin. I wish I would like to actually take Latin again because I'm a giant nerd. But I asked Kage Baker about her Latin, and she said, "Oh, I just hired a guy."
Oh,
she was like, "My Latin is so bad. It's just much like my own." She was like, "I'm not good at it. I love Latin, but I'm not good at it. So I hired someone who knew what the hell he was talking about."
Awesome. That makes sense.
So it's good to know your limitations, not to limit yourself, but to know your limitations.
Yeah.
And that was the thing is when Kage Baker was on the Dork Forest, I asked her what she read, and she said she was reading only Shakespeare and Terry Pratchett.
That's a good. I don't know if I'd call that a healthy mix, but it is a mix.
It's an interesting mix.
Yeah,
kind of breaks up I was all for it, and it made me read Terry Pratchett. It didn't make me read more Shakespeare, which is very sad.
Well, it depends which bit of Shakespeare. Some Shakespeare is very good. Some Marlowe's very good. Have you ever read Dr. Faustus?
No, I have not.
Got the best character
referred to a million times.
Yeah, no. It's basically the beginning's brilliant and the end's brilliant, and in the middle it's basically a man living out the fantasies of what you would do if you were a Renaissance man, if you had all the superpowers, and it's mainly just pissing off the Pope. That's basically what he does.
Just kind of acting like a dirtbag?
Exactly, yeah. He literally just makes fun of the Catholic Church and, gets revenge on all his enemies and that sort of thing. But no, the brilliant character in that is Mephistopheles, who is this devil who just hates being a devil and is really he seems like a 21st century figure just set back in time. Like, he goes, but you're all right, you're not in hell right now. And then Mephistopheles just looks at Dr. Faustus and just goes, this is hell and nor am I out of it. And it's just really dark and deep and at the same time plays with the Pope. But yeah, no, I don't know why I'm telling you this, but that's worth reading. That's worth reading.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
It makes me want to read the beginning and skim the middle and then read the end.
Literally just do that. Being physically dragged into hell at the end, spoilers, but that's kind of the point of it. At the beginning.
You can't spoil something that's 500 years old, it seems.
Yeah.
You can't even spoil Usual Suspects at this late date. The Crying Game. It's a man.
Oh, what are you saying?
What am I doing? Rosebud.
Oh, no!
No.
He's alive. No, he's dead, I mean. Well, yes.
Here's the sad thing about Kage Baker. So she passes away right when she's just starting to write fantasy. Oh. And so she has, I think it's 2 fantasy books out. The Anvil at the End of the World or The Anvil at the Beginning of the World. And then the House of the Stag, and the Anvil was written first, but the House of the Stag sets up the universe.
Okay.
And the House of it is a fantastical universe of demons, and it's so good. It's so good.
All I've got from this
fantasy, then you will be psyched.
It's cool. I do. I'm slightly more sci-fi. I like fantasy, but I got a bit distracted by Tolkien because that's basically just boys walking, which is fine, but it is just boys walking, and it gets a bit. But I do like a bit. Actually, there's some. I can't remember what it's called now. There's some nice fantasy where you're following a group of mice, and there's an evil cat queen, and it's all set in a wood, and it's all like they're all
anthropomorphism.
Yeah, but it worked. It works quite. It was quite fun, and obviously all the Narnias. But
I always gotta take a deep breath when I walk into the Mice Templar world.
Yeah, that's fair enough. You don't have to read everything. Do you like Agatha Christie?
I have read a little Agatha Christie. Do you know what I've just been reading is Nicholas Blake.
Oh, I haven't read any.
Who was Daniel Day-Lewis's dad, Daniel Dad Lewis.
Hey.
Not my joke, but his Cecil B. Davis, who was the poet laureate of the UK in 1970. Daniel Day-Lewis's dad had a nom de plume. He wrote under the name Nicholas Blake in the 20s, 30s, 40s, and wrote these essentially Agatha Christie novels. They are pulp mysteries. And the first one is hilarious because the first third of the book, all he's doing is making fun of the genre, because it's 1927 and he has to do this to earn rent. And he needs to pay his bills, so he's going to write this book, but he's a poet. But then he introduces his investigator, a character named Nigel Strangeways. And then he falls in love with his own character, and then he writes 14 more books.
Just like you do.
It's such an experience of ego, where you're like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. Oh, I'm really good at this. I will continue to do this. Well, the other great thing about the Nigel Strangeways books is that he wrote them and published them during World War II. And he was in London. You know, essentially in the beginning, he's writing them, and it's all Nigel Strangeways is a guy that survived World War I. And then he lives through World War II, and everybody dies. And you're like, what is happening? And they're all murder mysteries, but like people in Nigel Strangeways' life dies. And you can tell that Cecil, his family and friends were dying around him. Wow. During the bombings of London. And you're like, this is a horrible, hilarious, I mean, like an amazing glimpse fictionally, because when you hear stand-up comedy, when you read fiction, everyone can tell me that they're writing fiction. Everyone can tell me that they're writing, that this is all made up. And it is when you do a character on stage or whatever, but this is coming from a part of yourself, To some extent, everything is autobiographical.
Yeah.
Even a fantastical world like Harry Potter. The crazy thing about Harry, like I was babysitting 15 years ago, right, for a couple of kids. It was one of my day jobs that I had when I moved to Los Angeles. And so I was doing a lot of childcare, and the little girl, when she turned 11 and she did not get a letter from Hogwarts, she was inconsolable for like a day and a half. And I was like, your parents love you. They don't like you very much, but they love you. And you're
it's not the same. You see, I read it. I had to read Harry Potter because I was trying to get my friend Laura Cragen to read Douglas Adams, and she refused to. And we were at a boarding school called Witchwood. So I was upstairs in one of the dorms, reading the first Harry Potter book, going, well, she's been here. Down the road from my school was a school called The Dragon, and every morning I would watch Emma Watson go to school.
What?
While she was in the films, yeah. So she was just down the road. So it was a very surreal thing, Harry Potter, for me. And also it has Alan Rickman in it, and therefore is ultimately sexy, whether it wants to be or not. Indeed.
Okay, so here's the... when she was so sad and she was like, well, do you think magic is real? And I was like, don't tell your parents, but I'm going to tell you something that I genuinely believe about fiction. If you have written something that resonates, like Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings or Out of the Silent Planet, the C.S. Lewis trilogy, the space trilogy, or any, Verne, even Odysseus or Homer's work, when you have created a world like this, that, in my opinion, and this is entirely opinion, that world exists somewhere. I think that you are tapping into some sort of parallel universe. I don't think we're that good.
Well, if the universe is infinite, then it has to exist.
Then it has to exist somewhere. Yeah. So somewhere there is a Tolkien world. Somewhere someone has discovered these things.
And there are actually women in it, which would be...
And they're actually living in it, yes. And if there were a way.
Yeah.
So you're right to be sad, I said. No, I didn't. I was like, you're fine. Here, have this magic wand necklace. You'll grow up. It'll be fine. It is important, I think, like the Nicholas Blake books were so fascinating to me because they were so clearly... He was taking like bits of his life from the war and putting them in these mystery novels that were, I mean, they're pulp. They're not pulp, but I mean, it'd be like reading a Spencer for Hire novel now. I mean, it was better written than a Spencer for Hire novel, which is better written than a Janet Ivanovich novel. So
that's amazing. Thank you very much. I'm not sure exactly. Is there anything that I should know about? You think I
Kage
should?
Baker?
Yeah. Is there anything in her life? Was she married?
No, I think she was a lesbian.
Cool.
Don't know, but I think there was some discussion of her life partner, but she might not be. She never really talked about it, so I wouldn't. I mean, you could tell people. What are they going to do? Sue us? And then we'll go, no, we think it's cool if she were a lesbian.
Cool.
And
yeah.
And there's kind of a love story between Mendoza and there's not even kind of a love story. It's I don't want to give it away. It's the best part of the book.
Okay.
Is this recurring character, this recurring character, and he's fascinating. So
okay.
I recommend.
Okay.
Highly.
We will have to go and get a Cage book. A Cage book. It sounds wrong. Cage is such an American name. It's so very funny.
I don't even know if that's real.
Yeah.
I don't even, because Kage, but she grew up in Hollywood, so she could have been named Waffle. You know, I mean, people are naming their kid whatever.
See, that wasn't that bad, was it? Really, it wasn't. I'm just going to eat my own shoes right now. If there's a lesson for this, for anybody, it's that a lot of your faults are in your own head. I really hope they're in my own head. I'm really sorry, Jackie, if I did bad. Hey, it took me 4 years to get over the hump, and I think that is good progress. I mean, how long did it take Hannibal to go over the Alps? Yeah, a couple of weeks. Shut up, okay? Shut up. Urgh. Hopefully we will see you next month. Keep listening to this podcast and also check out the British Museum Membercast. Most recent episode of that, if you're listening to this now, is I interview a guy about dead people and dentistry. Lovely. Also you can listen to Seti Sopo, which is my weekly podcast with Simon Dunn, where we discuss the opposite of things which do not have a natural opposite. And please do check out all of Making History on BBC Sounds. Other than that, I will see you soon. You're listening to the Zedless Deadless podcast with me, Izzy Lawrence. To find out more, please visit izzy.com. That is ISZI.com. Thank you to all those who donate. You are wonderful people and you do a terrific job, and I owe you more podcasts. That is exactly what I owe you. But this one was a difficult one for me, so I hope you appreciate it. Also, please leave reviews on iTunes. If you want to donate, use the PayPal button on the website. And I will see you soon.